my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my October wrap-up. So I had a pretty good reading month in October. I read 21 books, which I was really happy with. It's not like my highest count so far this year, but it was pretty good as I had a bit of a rocky September, so really happy with 21 books. A lot of them were shorter, but you know, it doesn't matter. As always, I'm going to start from the lowest rated and work up to my favourite books of the month. And yeah, let's just get started. So the first book that I didn't give a rating was Storming Normans, which is one of the Horrible Histories books by Terry Deary. I've been reading the whole box set of the Horrible Histories books and going through and annotating them, ready to send over to Brittany. So there's a lot of my notes in here. I can't remember really whether this one was I wrote in the back, this was really interesting, I learnt a lot. So obviously I didn't know as much about the Normans as I thought I did. To be honest, all I know is William the Conqueror, 1066, Battle of Hastings, all that good stuff. But there was quite a lot more in this book than that, because you know, a lot more happened in that period of history than just the Battle of Hastings. So yeah, I read this one, didn't give it a rating, don't give any of these books a rating just because I know I'm not the desired audience. I'm definitely not a primary school kid in a history lesson, and it talks a lot about asking your teacher questions and doing little activities when you get home. So it really, I'm not the desired audience, but I did really enjoy this one. Similarly, I also read Vicious Vikings, so another one of the Horrible Histories books. This was book number 7 in the box set, and I wrote this was a bit more gruesome than I thought it'd make it, so there must have been a lot of things in this that were pretty disgusting. I think I remember that. I read these both right at the start of the month, so I'm a little bit rocky on what I felt about them. Again, don't rate it because I'm not the desired target audience, but did really enjoy it. And yeah, that's another one to pass along to Brittany. The next book I didn't rate was Mythpedia by, so that's Mythpedia by Good Wives and Warriors. I didn't give this one a rating. I had it as a ARC on NetGalley and I wasn't planning on reading it. I just downloaded it to my phone because it's very well designed, so I needed to be able to see it. And then didn't realise it would run out on my phone because I've never done that through NetGalley before. So yeah, I had to read it or I was going to lose it and not be able to rate it on Goodreads, on NetGalley rather. So on NetGalley I did give it 5 stars because I think it is perfect at what it wanted to do. It's a very well designed book to teach kids about myths and magic and all that good stuff. But in terms of my enjoyment, it would have been like 3 stars or less. So I didn't want to give it an actual rating because I think of what it set out to do, it was perfect, but I am not a kid learning about myths and magic. So I couldn't give it 5 stars on Goodreads, so I just decided it was best to not rate it at all. Now I have 2 books that I've got out of the same collection of books. I've not marked this, I'll show it you first. So the big book is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Other Stories by Lewis Carroll, which is a 1200 page collection of Lewis Carroll's work. So I read Alice's Adventure in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass this month, which in terms of this video I've classed as 2 books. But I won't be classing this as done on Goodreads until I read the whole thing, and I'm not marking the individual Alice books down as read. So my wrap-ups this year aren't going to completely tie up to Goodreads is what I'm saying. Yeah, I read 2 books out of this. I've got the same thing to say about both of them, so I'll just talk about them together. Didn't rate them because I don't know how. I think Lewis Carroll was definitely under the influence, especially Through the Looking Glass, which I actually read yesterday. Makes pretty much no sense, but it's still fun. I really enjoyed the stories. I really enjoyed like everything about it, but I cannot say that I understand anything that happened in Alice in Wonderland or in Through the Looking Glass. I was completely baffled, but I really enjoyed them. So no numbered rating. I am planning on finishing up this book. I'm just slowly plodding through the other sections. So when I finish the individual books inside, then you will see them in wrap-ups. Okay, so now on to the 1-star books. The first one that I've actually already passed along, and that is The Truth and Lies of Ella Black by Emily Barr. This was pretty dreadful. I mean, it's just my opinion. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. The One Memory of Flora Banks, which is also by Emily Barr, I really enjoyed, but I did read that quite a few years ago now. So I went into this with really high expectations, but a lot of people had said it wasn't the best. So open-minded but high expectations is how we were going into this. This is about a girl who, her name is Ella, and she has this part of herself that makes her do bad things, which she calls Bad Ella, so Bella. And that's how it all starts out. And one day Ella is taken out of school by her parents and they get on a plane to Rio. It's very mysterious. I would definitely say do not look at Goodreads if you feel like picking this book up, because there was a spoiler for like 250 pages in, which absolutely ruined it for me. And it was just very, very disjointed. So obviously I can't tell you what happens further on in the book, but it felt so unbelievable that I could not enjoy it at all. Like, I cannot ever see this being a real situation. And I think with this it felt like a thriller, but it was really just a dark contemporary, and being a contemporary, part of it has to be believable, and it wasn't, I'm afraid. So 1 star for my enjoyment on that. Next, I have The Price Guide to the Occult by Leslie Walton, which I am unhauling. I just still have for the purposes of this video, but it is listed on like my Depop and everything. I want this gone, so 1 star for this one. This is about Nor, who is from a line of witches. It's a very witchy family and they all have their individual witchy powers. They live on an island, and Nor's mom has decided to leave the family and she's pursuing big witchy things that she shouldn't be able to do. The premise of the story was really, really good. This, I would say, my main issue with this was a massive content warning for self-harm. So self-harm, reading about self-harm is not something that bothers me. I personally do not need like a warning before I read that, but it felt like every other page there was a mention, and it didn't add to the explanations of the story whatsoever. It was just constant. And I just found it really unnecessary. We weren't getting any development in the characters' like emotions, or like there wasn't any growth from it. There wasn't any purpose in the story. It was just constantly mentioned, and I felt like it was really excessive to the point that it was just not needed at all. Also, the ending of this was very rushed and didn't seem to make sense. I found like this needed to be a 400-page book, but if it was a 400-page book, I would have DNF'd it. I barely managed, and it was just shy of 300, so really not a good book for me. And then 1.5 stars, I read It's Okay, I'm Wearing Really Big Knickers by Louise Renison. So this is the second book in the Georgia Nicholson series. I did read Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging in September and also gave it 1.5 stars. These books definitely haven't aged well. I'm saying that because everyone loved them. I didn't read them. This is my first time reading them and I'm not enjoying them. But I bought all 10, so I'm putting myself through it because they're very short books, at least at the start. So the books are about Georgia Nicholson, and it's all about just her like becoming a woman. I think at the start of the first book she may be 13, but yeah, it's my issue with these. Obviously I can't say too much, it's the second book. They're very repetitive and they're very formulaic. So we start off with the characters doing something rude or so like doing something to annoy somebody else, to hurt somebody else, then it's all okay and everything's better, and then they do something else and then it's all okay and everything's better. It's just like there's no growth in the characters whatsoever, and I understand they're supposed to be, at least in this book, like 14-15 years old, but even teenagers, I'm sure, do not do the same thing over and over again. Like, it was very repetitive, and there's no consequences for anything that goes wrong. It's just, oh, it's okay. And I don't like that. There's also a romance between an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old, so I will stop with my review there and just let you think about that one. Okay, 2.5 stars, very specific rating. The first one is Protect Me Cowboy by Shelley Stevens. So I was having a bit of a read through of cowboy romances. That will make sense to most of my viewers if you are unaware. My boyfriend is American and he's definitely not a cowboy, but it's like an ongoing joke that I now enjoy cowboy romances, especially one that I read and the main character's name was Cole. So I really like my cowboy romances when I need a bit of a pick-me-up. This one, Protect Me Cowboy, I cannot remember any of the characters' names, to be honest. I want to say Wyatt. There's normally a Wyatt. This is about a girl, Claire, who used to be a singer in Las Vegas, and she's now ended up in a small town where she is the lead in a country band. She's like the singer, and she meets, I really think his name's Wyatt. I think it's Wyatt Marshall, but anyway, and they had a bit of a thing in Las Vegas when she was living under a different name, and she's now sort of unrecognisable, but now she's back and there's like sexual tension, and to be honest, I got a lot of enjoyment out of this book. I really, really enjoyed it, but I can appreciate that it was not the best literary piece ever written. So that's why I've gone for 2.5 stars. I need to speed up, I've been talking for far too long. The next 2.5 star book I've got is Shut Out by Cody Keplinger, which is another one I have, for all intents and purposes, unhauled, but still have to film this video. This is about some girls at Hamilton High. It's like not a sequel, but like it's in the same group as The Duff by Cody Keplinger, if you've read that. But this is about Hamilton High, where there is a feud between the American football team and the soccer team. And the boys hate each other, they just fight each other constantly, and the girls have had enough, so the girls decide that they're going to go on a sex strike and hope that that stops the boys from acting like children. It was fine, but like that was it. It was fine. I didn't agree with a lot of the choices made by the main character, and I feel like her choices were definitely very, very predictable. So yeah, it was fine. 2.5 stars. Next, on to the 3-star books, and one that I'm sort of disappointed by, but like I was expecting it, is The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. So this I read for my GCSE English Lit exam, and I haven't really read fully since then, so I decided to pick it up. Being Halloween and spooky season and everything, I wanted to give it another go because the film completely terrifies me, so it was time to see whether I was still terrified of the book. If I would have been terrified of this book, I would have given it 5 stars. But it didn't spook me at all. I gave it 3 stars pretty much just for how good the writing is. Some of the phrases are so powerful. Like I'm not gonna be able to find an example now that isn't a spoiler and isn't a very, very long sentence. Okay, we've got, at one point, the woman in black is described as a desperate yearning malevolence, and I just really like it. So I did go through this time, highlight any phrases I really loved. And I mean, it's tiny, I'm keeping it on my shelves even though it's a 3-star read, which I normally don't do, but it was just a good time to read again. It just didn't scare me. If you have absolutely no idea what this is about, you definitely should have watched the film. It's great. This is about Arthur Kipps, who is a solicitor from London, and he is sent to I can never say it when I'm on demand, Crythin Gifford, to settle the affairs of Alice Drablow, who has died, and she has Eel Marsh House, which is out on the marshes. Is it a marsh? It's like at the end of a causeway. I have no idea. Either way, it's creepy. It was a fine time to read the book, but I just definitely prefer the movie. But yeah, it was still enjoyable. Next, I have another one I was really disappointed by, and that is Beware the Wild by Natalie C. Parker. So I have unhauled this, but it's still here for this video. I'm going to stop saying that now when I say I've unhauled it. This is about a town that is surrounded, it's in Louisiana, and it is surrounded by swamps. And you do not go into the swamp because you don't return. This starts out with our main character, Sterling. Her older brother Phineas runs into the swamp and he doesn't come back out. And then later that day, a girl comes out of the swamp and just puts herself into Sterling's life. So she becomes Sterling's sister, and Sterling is the only one who knows that that's not her sister. She's never had a sister. So it's really, really good. That first chapter, that's what happens in the first chapter. And I was very creeped out. I went into this feeling like I was going to have chills constantly. But sadly, that's the only bit that creeped me out. The rest of the book was perfectly fine. It just wasn't creepy at all. So I gave it 3 stars because I don't feel like it achieved what it was set out to do. But it was a fine time. It just wasn't that thrilling. Next, I have a consistent rating for this series. We've got Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth. So Please Don't Kill Me. I gave this book 3 stars. I enjoyed it perfectly fine. It just didn't blow me away. I feel like I would give these books different ratings if I'd read them as I was younger, because there'd be like a nostalgia factor. But yeah, 3 stars for this one. I can't tell you what it's about because it's the 4th book, but we've got Percy, who is a half-blood. That never sounds right when I actually say it, but it is half-blood. He is, I won't even say who, but he is the son of a Greek god, and he is off fighting monsters in a labyrinth in this one. It was a good time. But yeah, every time I read these, I'm putting them aside for Brittany because she absolutely loves Percy, and I have these cool sprayed edges editions. So it already says to Brittany, love Chloe in the cover, and I will be putting it in my suitcase the next time I can. Next, we have It by Stephen King, which I read this month. I read the 1,200 page It, which I can't believe I've done it, to be honest. I'm proud of myself just for reading it, but I have given it 3 stars. So this was just too long. I personally don't understand the hype around Stephen King. I've only read It and Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game I gave 1 star, I hated it. It, there were at least parts of it that I did like, that did scare me. There was one night I had to sleep with the light on because I was absolutely terrified. But apart from that, nothing else really scared me. Some of the stuff with the characters I really liked, some of it was just boring. So 3 stars, very middle of the road, and I don't really want to talk about it more because somebody is going to get annoyed at me. And the final 3-star book is The Bane Chronicles by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan and Maureen Johnson. So I wanted to read this one because Magnus Bane is my favourite character from the Shadowhunter universe, and I thought I would really enjoy it. Some of the stories in here I really enjoyed, especially things with Magnus and Alec. Again, I won't say more because spoilers, but there were some short stories in here that were really interesting. Some of them I found really boring, some of them I found completely weird and no point in it. I might have given this 4 stars, but towards the end the stories didn't run in chronological order, like we jumped back in time a little bit, and because they've been going in order up to that point, I wanted to know what was happening next, and I ended up going backwards, and that really bothered me. Just a personal thing, didn't like it. But yeah, 3 stars, it was fine. I now know a bit more about Magnus and his background, but I would have really just liked like a Magnus and Alex spin-off, and I would have been fine. Next, 3.5 stars. Actually, I should probably say I have unhauled this, not keeping that around, but 3.5 stars, which I've also unhauled, is The Death of Mrs Westaway by Ruth Ware. This was fine. I think I gave it 3.5 stars just because there was a little bit that I didn't predict and it like threw me off slightly. So it was a little bit better than just fine, but it still wasn't really good. This is about Harriet Westaway, who receives a letter saying that her grandma has died and she's inherited a substantial amount. She knows she doesn't have a grandmother called, well, she doesn't have Mrs Westaway as a grandmother, but she decides to go anyway because she's really struggling financially, and she's got like nobody to fall back on. She has several loans, and she just decides that she needs some help, and if it's a case of mistaken identity, she's gonna roll with it. This was, I mean, I won't say any more because it's a thriller. I did guess the plot twist. I got it slightly wrong, but I knew what was going to happen, so I felt like that was a little bit of a letdown. It was fine. Ruth Ware's a very hit or miss author for me, so The Turn of the Key I gave 5 stars, In a Dark Dark Wood I gave 3 stars, and this I'm giving 3.5. Like, it was okay, it was a little better than okay, but it still wasn't great. I do have more of her books to read, so I am intrigued to see where the rest of them go in my ratings. Next, 4 stars, one book that I did unhaul but I did enjoy is Boys Don't Cry by Mallory Blackman. So this I think would have been a 3-star, but I had a little bit of a nostalgia factor which bumped it up to a 4-star. This is about Dante, who has just finished college and he's about to go off to university. He's had amazing grades, and his ex-girlfriend turns up on his doorstep with a baby and is like, "This is yours, enjoy, I'm leaving." So he is dumped with a baby that he didn't even know existed. This is just, it's so emotional. It deals with quite a lot of pretty heavy issues, and I really enjoyed it for that reason. It was fine in terms of a story, but I probably read this about 8 years ago and then still didn't absolutely love it. So I decided to unhaul it because if I waited 8 years, I can get it out of a library in another 8 years. Like, I'm really not bothered about keeping on my shelf unread. But yeah, it was a fine time. It just wasn't blowing my mind. Another 4-star book, we have Kiss of Death by Rachel Kane, which is book number 8 in the Morganville Vampires series. This was another one that I am so obsessed with these characters that they could do anything and I would give it at least 3 stars. So this story just I really enjoyed, but it didn't blow my mind, so it wasn't 5 stars. This is about a group of like teenagers. We have Claire, who's a bit younger, but really clever. So she gets sent to university. She goes to Texas Prairie University. Have I made that up? It's TPU. I know it's TPU. So she goes there, and it's in the town of Morganville. But Morganville is run by vampires. So Claire moves in with Eve, Shane and Michael, and they have to teach her basically how to protect herself in a town full of vampires. And once you get there, you can't leave. This was actually really interesting. I can't tell you stuff about the story because it's book number 8, but it was a really good time and I enjoyed it. It just didn't blow my mind, so I couldn't give it 5 stars. But then the books that I gave 5 stars that did blow me away. First of all, if you watch all of my wrap-ups, you might be confused. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. So this was the sisters' approximately pick for August. No, it wasn't, for September. So I did read it in September, but I read it again. And that is because I wanted to read it, and I wanted to read the next book. And I was still a little confused about things that happened in this. So last month I gave this book 4 stars. I've read it again and given it 5 stars because I must have missed a chunk and just not paid attention, but it made so much more sense this time and I really enjoyed it. I did go through and I highlighted pretty much everything and I actually absorbed the information, and it's a really good story. So I don't want to talk about this too much because I've already talked about it in one wrap up. And me and Brittany have an hour-long live show, so I will link the live show so you can see my opinions there. And basically all that's changed is I had a lot of questions in the live show that are explained perfectly in the book that I just missed last time. Speaking of sisters approximately, we have our October pick, Final Girls, which I gave 5 stars. We haven't had our live show yet because we've had to push it back a little bit, but that should be happening sometime this week. I really enjoyed this. I won't tell you too much because it is a thriller, but the idea of Final Girls is that there are a group of these 3 girls who they have been the only one to survive from a big massacre. So they are like named the Final Girls, and it's just about how they cope after, I guess. It says to survive a killer, you need a killer's instinct, which I don't quite understand. But yeah, I won't tell you too much about my thoughts on this. If you're very, very interested and you took part in Sisters Approximately this month, then please do check out the live show. I will link it ready in the description, but it won't be up by the time this video goes up, but it will be coming soon. And finally, a book I did not expect to blow me away. We have Water for Elephants by Sarah or Sarah, still not sure, Gruen. This is absolutely amazing. This just made me cry multiple times. I have seen the movie before, so I didn't expect the book to hit me quite so hard, but it really did. This is about Jacob Jankowski, who in the time of the Great Depression, he is studying, or is it after the Great Depression? Depression era America. He is studying to become a vet at Cornell University, and his dad is a vet, so he's going to start working in his dad's practice. But just before his final exams, his mom and his dad are in a fatal car crash, and he runs away and joins the circus. And oh wow, it's amazing. Even if you've seen the movie, you definitely need to pick up the book. I was a bit distracted by the fact in the movie it's Robert Pattinson and Reese Witherspoon, so that was like a nice image in my head and I enjoyed that. I don't think I would have got that from just reading the book because it doesn't quite match the character's description of Jacob. There was a lot in this as well. It's told from the perspective of Jacob as a 93-year-old man in a care home. So stuff about him being in the care home and not being able to like care for himself fully also made me really upset, and I really enjoyed reading it. So those are all the books I read in October. I'm sure you'll agree I had a pretty good month. If you've read any of these books, please do let me know in the description. Please let me know your opinions. I'd love to talk to you about them. But for now, this has gone on for far too long, so I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one.